I'm Dr. Alexandra Martinez, 34, and I was sitting at my sister Emma's housewarming party when everything exploded. Emma had just finished giving everyone a tour of her new mansion, paid for by her tech executive fiancé Daniel, when she turned to me with that familiar, cruel smile. "And this is my sister Alexandra," she announced to the room full of guests. She used to be a real doctor, but now she just works at a free clinic because she couldn't handle the pressure of actual medicine. Some people just aren't cut out for the big leagues. The room went quiet, tension filling the air as I felt my face burn with humiliation. But then Daniel stood up, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. He looked directly at me and said, "Tell them about the real reason you left medicine, Alexandra. Tell them what really happened 4 years ago." Emma's face went white as paper. The secret I'd kept to protect my sister was about to come out, and there was no going back. Before I continue, I want you to know that this story changed everything I thought I knew about family loyalty and what it means to do the right thing. If you've ever had to choose between protecting someone you love and standing up for the truth, this story is for you. What happened that night at Emma's party was just the beginning of a journey that would cost me everything I thought I wanted, but give me something far more valuable in return. Growing up, Emma and I were complete opposites. I was 3 years older, the serious one who spent her weekends studying while Emma was out making friends and living life to the fullest. Where I was methodical and careful, Emma was spontaneous and charming. Our parents, both successful professionals themselves, had different expectations for each of us. "Alexandra will be fine," my mother would say when teachers called about Emma's missed assignments. "She's so responsible. But Emma needs our support. She's more sensitive, more creative." It was always like that. My achievements were expected, Emma's struggles were excused, and somehow I became the family's unofficial caretaker, always looking out for my little sister. I threw myself into my studies, determined to become a doctor like our father. Medical school was brutal, but I loved it. The precision, the science, the ability to heal people, it felt like my calling. I graduated summa cum laude and landed a residency at one of the most prestigious hospitals in the city. Emma, meanwhile, bounced between colleges and majors, funded by our parents who worried she needed to find herself. During my residency, Emma finally seemed to settle down. She was dating Marcus, a struggling artist who seemed to genuinely care about her. They moved in together, and for the first time in years, Emma appeared stable and happy. I was so focused on my training that I didn't see the warning signs until it was too late. The call came at 2 a.m. during my second year of residency. I was already exhausted from a 36-hour shift when my phone rang. Emma's voice was barely recognizable, slurred and panicked. "Alex, I need help. Please come. Don't tell Mom and Dad." "Emma, where are you? What's wrong?" "The apartment. Marcus is gone. I think something's wrong with Tyler." Tyler. I hadn't even known Emma had a child until that moment. My heart stopped. "Emma, who is Tyler?" "My son. He's not breathing right. Please, Alex. I don't know what to do." I broke every speed limit getting to Emma's apartment. What I found there still haunts me. The place was a disaster. Empty bottles everywhere, the smell of vomit, and something chemical that made my medical training kick into high alert. And there, on a filthy couch, was a little boy who couldn't have been more than 18 months old, whimpering weakly, his lips tinged blue. "Oh my God, Emma," I breathed, immediately going to the child. "How long has he been like this?" Emma was crying hysterically, clearly under the influence of something. "I don't know. Since yesterday? Marcus left and said he couldn't do this anymore. I try to take care of Tyler, but I don't feel good." The child was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and showing signs of respiratory distress. I called 911 immediately, then called my attending physician to explain I'd be missing my shift. Tyler was my nephew, and he was dying. At the hospital, the full extent of the situation became clear. Tyler had been neglected for weeks, possibly months. He had multiple ear infections, was severely underweight, and was suffering from what appeared to be drug withdrawal. Emma had been using while breastfeeding. Child Protective Services was called, as was standard protocol. I didn't know, Emma kept saying. I didn't know it would hurt him. Marcus said it was fine, that it wouldn't affect the baby. But I could see in her eyes that she had known, at least on some level. She had chosen the drugs over her child, again and again. The social worker was kind but firm. Tyler would need to be placed in foster care, while Emma got help. Unless there was a family member willing to take temporary custody. I'll take him, I heard myself say. I'm his aunt. I'm a doctor. I can care for him. Emma looked at me with such relief and gratitude that it broke my heart. Thank you, Alex. I'll get clean, I promise. I'll be a good mom. But taking Tyler meant everything changed overnight. My demanding residency schedule became impossible to maintain while caring for a traumatized toddler. Tyler had night terrors, required multiple medical appointments, and needed constant supervision. I had to request a leave of absence from my program. This is temporary, my program director warned. You can take 6 months, but if you're not back by then, you'll have to reapply for next year's class. 6 months turned into 8, then 12. Tyler's needs were complex, and Emma's recovery was not going as planned. She relapsed twice, each time making it clear that she wasn't ready to be a mother. Meanwhile, Tyler began to thrive under my care. He started talking, gained weight, and slowly began to trust that he was safe. I loved him fiercely, completely. He became my world in a way I hadn't expected. When Emma completed her 3rd attempt at rehab and announced she was ready to take Tyler back, I felt my heart breaking. He's my son, Alex, she said, looking healthier than she had in years. I'm clean now. I have a job, a new apartment. It's time. I wanted to fight her. Every instinct told me Tyler was better off with me. But Emma was his mother, and she seemed genuinely changed. I helped with the transition, made her promise to maintain his therapy appointments, to call if she needed help. A month after Tyler went back to Emma, I received devastating news. During one of Tyler's routine checkups that I had insisted Emma maintain, they discovered that he had developed a rare autoimmune condition, likely triggered by the early neglect and stress he'd endured. He needed immediate, aggressive treatment. I threw myself into researching his condition, consulting with specialists, coordinating his care. The treatment was working, but it required precise timing and careful monitoring. During one particularly critical phase, Emma called me in tears. I can't do this, Alex. It's too much. He needs his medicine every 4 hours, even at night. I haven't slept in weeks. I'm starting to think about using again. I'll help, I said immediately. I'll move in temporarily, help with his care. For the next month, I essentially lived at Emma's apartment, managing Tyler's complex medical regimen while Emma slowly fell apart. She wasn't using, but she was overwhelmed, resentful, and increasingly dependent on me to handle everything related to Tyler's care. Then came the night that changed everything. I was at the hospital, covering a shift at the emergency clinic to earn some money while on leave from my residency, when Emma called. Alex, I think I messed up Tyler's medicine. I can't remember if I gave him the afternoon dose or not. He seems weird. My blood went cold. Tyler's medication had a narrow therapeutic window. Too little and his condition would flare. Too much and it could cause serious side effects. Emma, this is important. Think carefully. Did you give him the 3 p.m. dose? I think so. I was really tired. I might have given it to him twice by mistake. I raced to her apartment, my medical training warring with my panic as an aunt. I found Tyler lethargic and showing signs of medication toxicity. We rushed to the hospital, where he spent 3 days in intensive care. This level of medication error suggests either deliberate overdose or severe negligence, the attending physician told the social worker who had been called. Either way, this child isn't safe in his current environment. Emma broke down completely. I can't do this, she sobbed. I love him, but I can't be what he needs. Alex, please, take him back. But by then, it was too late for me to simply resume custody. The medication error had triggered a full CPS investigation. Emma's history of drug use, combined with this latest incident, meant Tyler would likely be placed in foster care unless a relative could pass a comprehensive evaluation and background check. The evaluation process took weeks. During that time, Tyler was placed in temporary foster care, and I was only allowed supervised visits. Watching him confused and frightened, asking when he could come home, nearly destroyed me. Meanwhile, my leave from residency had long since expired. The program director was sympathetic but firm. If I wanted to continue my medical training, I needed to return immediately or reapply next year. I can't, I told him. My nephew needs me. I understand your dedication to family, he said, but you've worked too hard to throw away your career. The boy will be fine. These situations usually work themselves out. But Tyler wasn't just any boy. He was my boy, in every way that mattered except legally. I made the hardest decision of my life and withdrew from the residency program. The background check and evaluation took 3 months. During that time, I worked at the free clinic where I'd done some volunteer work, the only place that would hire a doctor who'd left residency. The pay was a fraction of what I'd eventually earn as a specialist, but it didn't matter. Tyler mattered. When I was finally awarded custody, Tyler had been in foster care for almost 4 months. He was different, more withdrawn, less trusting. It took months of patience and consistency to help him feel secure again. Emma disappeared during this time. She left a note saying she couldn't handle watching Tyler with me, knowing she'd failed him. Our parents were devastated by the revelation that they had a grandson they'd never known about, a grandson who'd suffered because they hadn't seen what was happening with Emma. For 2 years, Tyler and I built a life together. He thrived in kindergarten, made friends, and slowly the trauma of his early life began to fade. I loved my work at the clinic, even though everyone assumed I was there because I'd somehow failed as a real doctor. Then Emma returned. She'd been in California, working for a tech startup, and had met Daniel, a successful executive who seemed to ground her in a way no one else ever had. She looked healthy, successful, and claimed to be completely sober. "I want to see Tyler," she announced during her first visit back. "I'm his mother. I have rights." The legal battle was brutal. Emma had completed therapy, had a stable job and relationship, and convinced the court that she deserved another chance. Despite Tyler's pleas to stay with me, despite the testimony about his progress and our bond, the judge ruled that family reunification was in the child's best interest. "I promise I'll be better this time," Emma swore as Tyler clung to me, sobbing. "And you can visit any time." But visits became less frequent as Emma and Daniel got serious. They moved across the country for Daniel's job, taking Tyler with them. Emma sent photos and videos for a while, but gradually the communication dwindled. When I tried to call, Emma would make excuses. Tyler was busy with new friends, they were traveling, he was adjusting to his new life. The last time I spoke to Tyler was over a year ago. He sounded different, distant, and when I asked if he was happy, he gave a non-committal answer that broke my heart. I threw myself into my work at the clinic, eventually becoming the medical director. My colleagues respected my skills, but I could see the questions in their eyes. Why was someone with my obvious talent working at a free clinic instead of a prestigious hospital? I let them wonder. I let everyone assume I'd somehow failed in real medicine. It was easier than explaining the truth, easier than opening up the wound of losing Tyler. Which brings me back to Emma's housewarming party. She'd invited me, I suspect, to show off her success and my comparative failure. She'd always been competitive, but something about her happiness seemed to require my misery as contrast. I almost didn't go, but curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see how Tyler was doing, hoped Emma might share some update about him. The house was stunning, a modern mansion in the hills with a view of the entire city. Emma had clearly come far from the broken young woman I'd rescued 4 years ago. She was radiant, confident, playing the perfect hostess. "Alexandra," she greeted me with air kisses, her voice artificially bright. "I'm so glad you could make it. Everyone, this is my sister I was telling you about." The introductions were torture. Emma presented me like a cautionary tale, the sister who'd had so much potential but somehow couldn't cut it in the real world of medicine. "Alex works at a free clinic downtown," she told Daniel's colleagues, her tone dripping with false sympathy. "She's always been drawn to simpler things. Not everyone can handle the pressure of high-stakes medicine." I smiled politely, used to this treatment from Emma. But I noticed Daniel watching me carefully, his expression troubled. The final blow came during the house tour. Emma was showing off Tyler's room, a spacious bedroom with expensive furniture and every toy a child could want. "Where is Tyler?" I asked, unable to help myself. I was hoping to see him. Emma's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, he's at summer camp. Having such a wonderful time. You know how kids are always busy with new activities." Something in her tone set off alarms in my head, but before I could ask more questions, we'd moved on to the next room. It was later, during dinner, that Emma made her most cutting remark about my career, calling me a failed doctor who couldn't handle real medicine. The room went silent, and I felt the familiar burn of humiliation. That's when Daniel stood up, his face grave, and said those words that changed everything. "Tell them about the real reason you left medicine, Alexandra. Tell them what really happened 4 years ago." Emma went white. "Daniel, what are you doing?" But Daniel's eyes were on me, and I saw something in them. Knowledge, understanding, and a challenge. "I found some medical records," he said quietly. "Records about Tyler's treatment, about the custody case. I know what you sacrificed, Alexandra." The room was silent, waiting. Emma looked panicked, desperate. "Daniel, please," she whispered. "This isn't the time." "When is the time, Emma?" he asked, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel. "When is the time to acknowledge what your sister gave up for you? For Tyler?" I felt tears building in my eyes. After years of silence, of letting people think I'd failed, someone finally knew the truth. "I left my residency to take care of Tyler," I said, my voice steady despite my emotion.
Emma est sans.
When she wasn't able to care for him due to her addiction, I became his guardian. I gave up my career in medicine to raise him for 2 years. The gasps around the table were audible. Emma's friends looked shocked, confused. "That's not how it was," Emma said weakly. "You're making it sound worse than it was." "Am I?" I asked, finding my voice, my strength, because I remember a little boy who was dying from neglect when I found him. I remember giving up everything I'd worked for to save his life. And I remember you taking him away from me when it was convenient. "He's my son," Emma said, her voice rising. "I had every right to take him back when I got clean." "And where is he now, Emma?" Daniel asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. "He's at camp," Emma repeated, but her voice was shaking. "No," Daniel said firmly. "He's not." Emma's face crumpled. Around the table, guests were shifting uncomfortably, clearly wanting to leave, but transfixed by the drama unfolding. "Daniel found out 2 weeks ago," Emma said, her voice barely a whisper. "Tyler's been in foster care for 6 months. I relapsed. I couldn't handle the pressure of Daniel's job, the move, trying to be a perfect mother. I started using again, and Tyler got hurt." The room spun around me. Tyler, my Tyler, back in the system. The system I'd fought so hard to keep him out of.
How?
I managed to ask. "There was an accident," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "I was high, and Tyler fell down the stairs. He broke his arm, and when they tested me at the hospital..." She didn't need to finish. I knew how these things went. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me he needed help?" "Because I knew you'd take him away from me," Emma sobbed. "I knew you'd be the better mother, and I couldn't face that again." Daniel looked at Emma with a mixture of disappointment and sadness. "I've been trying to get Emma to tell you for weeks. I even contacted the social worker handling Tyler's case. He's been asking for you, Alexandra. He remembers you." My heart shattered and soared at the same time.
Tyler remembered me. Tyler wanted me.
"I'm going to get him," I said, standing up. "I'm going to bring him home." "You can't," Emma said desperately. "I'm his mother. I have rights." "Rights you've abdicated twice now," I said firmly. "Tyler deserves better than this cycle of abandonment and trauma." Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. "I've already spoken to a family lawyer. Given Emma's history and the current situation, you have a strong case for permanent custody." Emma stared at him in shock. "You've been planning this behind my back?" I've been planning to help an innocent child, Daniel replied. Something I thought you'd want to. The party broke up quickly after that, guests making awkward excuses and leaving. Soon it was just Emma, Daniel, and me in the beautiful house that had cost Tyler his security once again. I never meant for this to happen, Emma said, slumped in her expensive chair. I really thought I could do it this time. Meaning to do better isn't enough anymore, Emma, I said, my voice gentler than I felt. Tyler can't keep paying the price for your good intentions. Daniel looked at Emma with genuine sadness. I can't marry someone who would keep a child's suffering secret from the one person who could help him. This isn't who I thought you were. Emma began to cry harder, but I couldn't summon much sympathy. All I could think about was Tyler, scared and confused in yet another foster home, wondering why no one was coming for him. The legal process moved quickly this time. Emma, perhaps finally understanding the damage she'd caused, didn't contest my petition for custody. Daniel provided financial support for the legal fees, saying it was the least he could do. 3 weeks after that devastating dinner party, I walked into a social services office to pick up Tyler. He was 6 now, taller than I remembered, but his eyes were the same, too old, too wary for a child his age. Aunt Alex, he said tentatively when he saw me. I'm here, baby, I said, kneeling down to his level. I'm here, and I'm never letting you go again. He collapsed into my arms, and I felt the missing piece of my heart slot back into place. The transition wasn't easy. Tyler had been through another round of trauma, and it took months of therapy and patience to help him feel secure again. But gradually, his laughter returned. He started sleeping through the night. He began to trust that when I said I'd be there, I would be. My work at the clinic took on new meaning. I wasn't a failed doctor. I was a doctor who understood what it meant to fight for the most vulnerable patients. My colleagues, who learned the truth about my career change, began to see me differently. The clinic board offered me a position developing a new program for children in the foster care system. Your experience gives you insights that most doctors don't have, the board chair explained. You understand these kids from both a medical and personal perspective. Emma and I didn't speak for months after Tyler came to live with me permanently. Daniel had broken off their engagement, unable to reconcile the woman he'd fallen in love with and the woman who could abandon her child. Emma spiraled again, but this time, I didn't rush to save her. It was Tyler who asked about her first. Do you think Mom misses me? He asked one night as I tucked him into bed. I think she does, I said honestly. I think she loves you very much, but she has problems that make it hard for her to take care of you the way you deserve. Will she get better? I don't know, sweetheart. But whether she does or not, you're safe here with me. Always. A year later, Emma called. She was in rehab again, her third serious attempt at getting clean. She sounded different, humbler, more honest about her limitations. I know I don't deserve to ask, she said, but could you tell Tyler that I love him? That I'm sorry. You can tell him yourself, I said, surprising us both. When you're ready, when you're stable, you can visit. Supervised visits, and only if Tyler wants to see you. Thank you, she whispered. And Alex? Thank you for saving him. For saving us both, really. Emma's recovery is ongoing. She visits Tyler once a month now, always supervised, and she's learned to be a loving aunt rather than trying to be a mother she's not equipped to be. Tyler enjoys these visits, but never asks when she's coming to take him home. He knows he's already home. Daniel remained a friend through all of this. His investigation into Tyler's situation had opened his eyes to the complexities of family dysfunction and child welfare. He started a foundation that provides legal support for relatives seeking custody of children in the system. You inspired me, he told me during one of our quarterly check-ins about the foundation's progress. You showed me what it looks like to put a child's needs above everything else. My parents, initially shocked by the revelation of Tyler's existence and Emma's struggles, have become devoted grandparents. They're learning, slowly, to see Emma's problems clearly rather than making excuses for her. More importantly, they're learning to appreciate the choices I made. We always knew you were special, my father said during a recent visit. But we didn't understand how special until we saw what you did for Tyler. The work at the clinic continues to fulfill me in ways I never expected. I'm not the high-powered specialist I once thought I'd be, but I'm exactly the doctor I'm meant to be. I help families navigate crisis. I advocate for children who have no voice, and I use my medical knowledge to serve those who need it most. Tyler is thriving now. He's 8, loves science and art, and has a laugh that can light up any room. He calls me Mom, and the word still makes my heart skip every time I hear it. Mom, he said to me just last week, my teacher asked us to write about our hero. Can I write about you? You can write about anyone you want, sweetheart. Good, because you're the bravest person I know. You gave up everything to save me. I didn't give up everything. I corrected him, pulling him close. I gained everything that matters. Looking back, I don't regret the path my life has taken. I thought I wanted prestige, recognition, the approval of my family and peers. Instead, I found purpose, love, and the knowledge that I made the right choice when it mattered most. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead us exactly where we need to be. Sometimes what looks like failure from the outside is actually the greatest success we could achieve. And sometimes the family we choose is more powerful than the family we're born into. Tyler and I are proof that love, consistency, and putting someone else's needs first can heal even the deepest wounds. We're not the family I planned for, but we're the family that was meant to be. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever had to choose between what others expected and what you knew was right, please share it. Your story matters too, and someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone in making the difficult choices that love sometimes requires. The years that followed were a testament to the power of consistent love and stability. Tyler flourished in ways that amazed his teachers, his therapists, and even me. The withdrawn, traumatized little boy I'd first rescued had grown into a confident, curious child who loved to ask why about everything he encountered. Mom, why do some kids not have families? He asked one evening as we worked on his homework together. It was a question that came up periodically, usually triggered by something he'd learned at school or seen on television. I'd learned to answer honestly, but age-appropriately. Sometimes families have problems that make it hard for them to take care of children the way they should, I explained. That's why there are people like social workers and judges and foster families to make sure kids are safe and loved. Like you did for me? Exactly like that. Tyler nodded thoughtfully, then went back to his math problems. These conversations had become easier over time, both for him and for me. He understood his story in a way that was healthy and honest, without carrying blame or shame. My own understanding of family had evolved too. The traditional definitions I'd grown up with, blood relations, conventional structures, societal expectations, had proven inadequate for the reality of love and commitment that Tyler and I shared. We were family in the truest sense, bound not by genetics, but by choice, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication to each other's well-being. The clinic had become more than just my workplace, it was my calling. The program for children in foster care that I developed had expanded into a comprehensive support system that included medical care, mental health services, and advocacy. We were making a real difference in young lives, and I woke up every day grateful for the opportunity to do meaningful work. Dr. Martinez, my colleague Dr. Sarah Kim, said one afternoon as we reviewed patient files, I have to ask, do you ever miss it? The prestige of a big hospital, the specialization, the money? I looked around at our modest clinic, with its donated equipment and volunteer-painted walls covered in children's artwork. Through the window, I could see Tyler in the small playground we'd built behind the building, playing with other children whose parents were receiving care inside. You know what I miss? I said. I miss the version of myself who thought prestige mattered more than purpose. I miss how simple life seemed when I thought success was just about achieving what other people expected of me. Sarah smiled. That's not really an answer to my question. It's the only answer that matters, I replied. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. That evening, as Tyler and I prepared dinner together, a routine we both cherished, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Emma's name, which wasn't unusual. Her monthly check-ins had become a regular part of our lives. Hi, Emma, I answered, putting the phone on speaker so Tyler could hear if he wanted to participate in the conversation. Alex, I have news, Emma said, her voice carrying an excitement I hadn't heard in years. Good news, I think. Tyler looked up from the vegetables he was washing, interested despite himself. I got a promotion at work, Emma continued. And I've been clean for 18 months now. My sponsor thinks I'm ready for the next step. That's wonderful, Emma, I said, genuinely pleased. What kind of next step? I want to go back to school. Social work. I want to help families like ours, families dealing with addiction and custody issues. I know it sounds crazy, but I think I could really help people. Tyler had stopped his vegetable washing and was listening intently. This was a side of his birth mother he rarely saw, hopeful, forward-thinking, focused on helping others rather than just surviving. That doesn't sound crazy at all, I said. It sounds like you've found your purpose. Can I talk to Tyler? Emma asked hesitantly. Tyler nodded, and I handed him the phone. Hi, Mom, he said, using the title he'd started using for Emma during their visits. Different from the mom he called me, but meaningful in its own way.
But
How was school today? As Tyler chatted with Emma about his day, his friends, his latest art project, I marveled at how normal this conversation seemed. There was no tension, no pain, just a mother and son maintaining a connection that worked for both of them. When Tyler handed the phone back to me, Emma's voice was thick with emotion. Alex, I need to say something. I've been working with my therapist on making amends, and I know I can never undo the damage I caused. But I want you to know that what you did, taking Tyler, sacrificing your career, never giving up on him, it saved both of our lives. He has a mother who will never leave him, and I have the space to become the person I'm supposed to be without failing him again. Tears stung my eyes. Emma, you don't need to. Yes, I do. I need to say it, and you need to hear it. You're his real mother, Alex. Biology doesn't make someone a parent. Love and sacrifice and showing up every day does. You've done that. I couldn't. After we hung up, Tyler and I continued preparing dinner in comfortable silence. Finally, he spoke. Mom, do you think my birth mom will be okay? I think she's working very hard to be okay, I said. And I think she's finally found a way to help other people while she helps herself. Good, Tyler said simply. I like it when she's happy. It makes the visits easier. His emotional maturity never ceased to amaze me. At 8 years old, he had a wisdom about relationships and family dynamics that many adults never develop. 6 months later, Emma started her social work program. She sent us photos from her classes, excited updates about internships, and thoughtful questions about child development that showed how seriously she was taking her studies. I had a case today that reminded me of us, she wrote in one of her emails. A grandmother fighting for custody of her grandson because his parents are addicted. I was able to help her understand the legal process because I remembered what you went through with Tyler. It felt good to use our story to help someone else. Daniel had kept in touch as well. His foundation had grown beyond legal support to include funding for relative caregivers who, like me, had to make career sacrifices to care for children. He'd also started dating a social worker named Lisa, someone who understood his passion for child welfare. You started something important, he told me during one of his visits to check on our clinic's partnership with his foundation. Tyler's story, your story, it's helping families across the country. My parents had undergone their own transformation. Becoming active grandparents to Tyler had opened their eyes to their own patterns of favoritism and enabling. They'd started family therapy, not just to understand their relationship with Emma, but to build a healthier foundation for their relationship with Tyler and me. We failed you in a lot of ways, my mother said during one of our weekly dinners at their house. We let Emma's problems become everyone's crisis, and we never acknowledged the burden that put on you. We're working on being better, my father added. Not just as parents, but as grandparents. Tyler deserves better than the family dynamics that hurt you and Emma. Tyler thrived in their attention. He had loving grandparents who showed up to his school plays, helped with homework, and created new traditions that centered around his interests rather than family dysfunction. As Tyler's 9th birthday approached, I found myself reflecting on how far we'd all come. The boy who'd once been afraid to trust that I wouldn't leave him was now confident enough to spend weekends with his grandparents, have sleepovers with friends, and even enjoy his monthly visits with Emma without anxiety. "Mom," he said one evening as we looked through photo albums together, "do you think things happen for a reason?" It was a deep question for a 9-year-old, but Tyler had always been thoughtful beyond his years. "What do you think?" I asked, curious about his perspective. "I think maybe bad things happen, but sometimes good things come from them. Like, if my birth mom hadn't had problems, you wouldn't have become my mom. And you're the best mom for me." "You know what I think," I said, pulling him close. "I think love finds a way. It might not look like what we expect, but it finds a way. Like us. Exactly like us." The next week brought an unexpected phone call from Dr. Patricia Williams, the chief of pediatrics at the hospital where I'd once done my residency. I hadn't spoken to her in years. "Alexandra," she said, "I have a proposition for you. We're starting a new program here, a family advocacy unit that works with children in the foster care system who need medical attention. We need someone to head it up, someone who understands both the medical and social aspects of these cases." My heart skipped. "Dr. Williams, I'm honored that you thought of me, but I'm very happy at the clinic." "I know you are, and that's exactly why I want you. You've built something remarkable there. We want to expand that model, bring it into the hospital system, where we can reach even more children. You'd keep your clinic, but you'd also have the resources of a major medical center." "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But Alexandra, you've proven that success isn't about prestige or money. You've shown that the best doctors are the ones who put their patients' needs first, even when it costs them something. We need more doctors like you." That evening, I discussed the offer with Tyler over dinner. "It sounds like a big opportunity," he said thoughtfully. "Would it mean you'd be busier?" "It might mean some changes to our schedule," I admitted. "But it would also mean I could help more kids like you, kids who need advocates in the medical system." Tyler considered this seriously. "Do you want to do it?" The question struck me as perfectly Tyler, always concerned about my happiness, even at 9 years old. "I think I do," I said. "But only if you're okay with it. You're my priority, always." "I think you should do it," he said. "You're really good at helping kids, and more kids should get to have that." 2 weeks later, I accepted the position. The new role would allow me to maintain my work at the clinic 3 days a week while developing the hospital's program the other 2 days. It felt like the perfect balance of the mission-driven work I loved with the resources and reach to make an even bigger impact. On my first day at the hospital, I walked through the halls where I'd once trained as a resident. The memories were bittersweet. This had been my dream once, but that dream had been transformed by love and sacrifice into something more meaningful. My first case was a 7-year-old girl named Maria, whose foster parents were struggling to navigate her complex medical needs. As I sat with them, explaining treatment options and helping them understand the systems they needed to work with, I saw myself and Tyler from years earlier. "Dr. Martinez," the foster mother said as our meeting concluded, "thank you for taking the time to really explain everything. Most doctors just tell us what to do and expect us to figure out the rest." "Every child deserves an advocate," I replied. "You're doing a beautiful job with Maria." As I drove home that evening, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The career I'd thought I'd lost had been transformed into something I never could have imagined. I wasn't a specialist I'd once planned to be, but I was something more important, a doctor who understood that healing involved more than medicine. Tyler was waiting for me in our driveway, having gotten off the school bus just minutes before. "How was your first day at the new job?" he asked as we walked to the house together. "It was good," I said. "I helped a little girl and her family figure out her medical care. It reminded me of us." "Good," Tyler said, slipping his hand into mine. "I like it when you help families like ours." That night, as I tucked Tyler into bed, he asked me a question that had become part of our nightly routine. "Mom, what's the best part of today?" "Coming home to you," I said, as I always did. "Mine too," he replied. "Well, that and knowing that more kids are going to get help because of your new job." As I turned off his light and headed to my own room, I reflected on the unexpected turns my life had taken. I'd thought success meant following a predetermined path, achieving recognition, meeting other people's expectations. Instead, I'd learned that success meant making choices based on love, fighting for what mattered most, and building a life that aligned with my deepest values. Tyler and I had created something beautiful from the broken pieces of trauma and loss. We'd proven that families come in all forms, that love is stronger than biology, and that sometimes the most important victories happen quietly, in the daily acts of showing up for each other. The story that began with Emma's cruel words at a dinner party had become a story of redemption, growth, and the power of unconditional love. Not just Tyler's redemption, but all of ours. Emma finding her purpose in helping others, my parents learning to be better grandparents, Daniel using his resources to support families in need, and me discovering that the career I thought I'd lost had actually led me to my true calling. As I fell asleep that night, I smiled thinking about Tyler's earlier question about things happening for a reason. Maybe they did, or maybe love and determination were strong enough to create meaning from chaos. Either way, we'd found our way to exactly where we belonged. The next morning brought a new day of possibilities, a child who trusted me completely, and work that mattered. It was more than enough. It was everything. 2 years into my new role at the hospital, the program had grown beyond my wildest expectations. We'd helped over 300 children navigate complex medical situations while in foster care, and the model was being replicated in hospitals across the state. But it was a particular case that arrived on a rainy Thursday morning that would test everything I'd learned about family, sacrifice, and doing what's right. Dr. Martinez, my assistant Jenny, called from the outer office. There's a situation in the ER. They're asking for you specifically. I grabbed my white coat and headed downstairs, wondering what kind of case required the family advocacy unit's immediate attention. What I found in the emergency room made my blood run cold. A little girl, maybe 4 years old, was lying on a gurney surrounded by medical staff. She was unconscious, severely malnourished, and covered in bruises that clearly indicated abuse. But it wasn't her condition that stopped me in my tracks. It was the woman sitting in the waiting area, being questioned by police. Emma. Dr. Martinez? The ER physician, Dr. Roberts, approached me. We need your help with this case. The woman who brought the child in claims to be her aunt, but the story isn't adding up. The child is in critical condition, and we need to understand the family dynamics here. My hands were shaking as I reviewed the chart. The little girl's name was Sophie Chen. She shared my last name, which meant the woman in the waiting area. I said carefully, "Is her name Emma Martinez?" Dr. Roberts checked his notes.
Yes.
Do you know her? The irony was devastating. She's my sister. The full story emerged over the next several hours, and it was heartbreakingly familiar. Emma had been working as a social worker for 2 years, successfully maintaining her sobriety and helping other families. But 6 months ago, she'd been assigned Sophie's case, a little girl whose parents had died in a car accident, leaving her with distant relatives who had no interest in raising her. Sophie reminded me so much of Tyler at that age, Emma explained when I finally spoke with her privately.
She was so scared, so alone.
The relatives were just going through the motions, collecting the state payments, but not really caring for her. So you took her? I asked, trying to understand. I petitioned for emergency custody. I thought I could do it. I was stable. I had a good job. I'd learned so much about child development. But Emma's voice broke. I started using again 3 months ago. The stress of being a single parent, the responsibility, the fear that I'd mess up another child's life. The pattern was sickeningly familiar, but this time the stakes felt even higher. Sophie wasn't Emma's biological child. She was a foster child who had been placed with Emma through the system, a system that would now view Emma as another failed placement. Emma, I said gently, Sophie could have died. She's severely malnourished and shows signs of neglect. I know, Emma sobbed. I know I failed her. But Alex, she is no one else. Her relatives have already said they don't want her back. If I lose custody, she'll go into the general foster system, and you know how that goes. I did know. Children like Sophie, who came with trauma and trust issues, often bounced between multiple placements. never finding the stability they desperately needed. "I'll take her," I heard myself say, the words coming out before I'd fully processed the decision. Emma looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. "Alex, you can't. You already have Tyler, and your career is finally taking off. You can't sacrifice everything again." But even as she said it, I knew there was no choice. Sophie was lying in that hospital bed because the system had failed her, just as it had failed Tyler. The difference was that this time, I was in a position to do something about it from the very beginning. Dr. Roberts returned with an update on Sophie's condition. "She's stable, but she'll need to stay in the hospital for at least a week. The malnutrition has affected her immune system, and we need to monitor her closely." "I'd like to request a consultation with Child Protective Services," I said. "I'm Dr. Martinez, and I run the Family Advocacy Program here. I'd like to discuss placement options for Sophie." Over the next several days, while Sophie recovered in the hospital, I found myself reliving the same process I'd gone through with Tyler years earlier. Background checks, home visits, psychological evaluations, all the bureaucratic hoops that stood between a child and safety. Tyler, now 11 and wise beyond his years, was my strongest advocate. "Mom, we have to help her," he said when I explained the situation. "She's like I was, scared and alone. You saved me. Now we can save her." "Tyler, having another child in the house would change everything. Your room, your schedule, the attention you get from me. Are you sure you're okay with that?" Tyler looked at me with the serious expression he got when he was thinking deeply. "Remember what you taught me about family? That it's not about blood, it's about choosing to love people and take care of them." I nodded. "Well, I choose Sophie. She needs a family, and we're a good family." The legal process moved more smoothly this time, partly because of my position in the medical community, but mostly because Emma cooperated fully. She signed away her custody rights and voluntarily entered a long-term treatment program. "I can't keep hurting children," she told me before leaving for rehab. "I thought I was better, but I'm not. Maybe I never will be. But you know how to love kids without destroying them." Sophie was discharged from the hospital into my care on a Friday afternoon. Unlike Tyler, who had been old enough to understand what was happening, Sophie was just a frightened 4-year-old who didn't understand why the woman she'd been living with was gone, why she was in the hospital, or who this new lady was who claimed to want to take care of her. "Sophie," I said gently as we sat in her hospital room, "my name is Alexandra, but you can call me Alex. I'm going to take you to my house, where you'll be safe and loved." Sophie stared at me with enormous dark eyes, clutching a stuffed elephant that one of the nurses had given her. She hadn't spoken since arriving at the hospital, a common response to trauma in young children. "I have a son named Tyler who's very excited to meet you," I continued. "And we have a nice room ready for you, with books and toys and everything a little girl needs." Sophie remained silent, but she allowed me to help her get dressed and gather her few belongings. The drive home was quiet, with Tyler chatting softly to Sophie about his school, his friends, and the playground behind our house. The first few weeks were challenging in ways I'd forgotten since Tyler's early days with me. Sophie had night terrors, refused to eat most foods, and would panic if I left her sight for even a few minutes. But Tyler was an incredible help, somehow understanding exactly how to interact with a traumatized child. "Don't worry, Sophie," I overheard him telling her one evening as they played quietly in the living room. "I was scared when I first came here too. But Alex, Mom, she keeps all her promises. When she says you're safe, you really are." Gradually, Sophie began to respond. First with small smiles, then with tentative words, and finally with the giggles and curiosity that should have been natural for a 4-year-old. Watching her transformation reminded me why I'd made these choices in the first place. My work took on new dimensions as well. Having both Tyler and Sophie gave me insights into different types of trauma and healing that enhanced my ability to help other families.